It was just another busy day at my restaurant, the place I had poured my heart and soul into. The scent of freshly grilled steaks filled the air, the sound of customers chatting and silverware clinking created the perfect ambience. This was my dream, something I had worked hard to build from the ground up. But little did I know, my peaceful routine was about to be shattered. As I stepped outside to grab a quick breath of fresh air, I noticed her. Karen. She stood at the edge of the parking lot, arms crossed, lips pursed, eyes scanning the restaurant like a detective looking for a crime scene. My stomach tightened. I had seen that look before. Judgment, entitlement, the kind of attitude that screamed, "I have a problem and I'm about to make it yours." I forced a polite smile as she marched toward me. "Excuse me," she began, her voice dripping with artificial politeness. "Are you the owner of this place?" I nodded, wiping my hands on my apron. "Yes, I am. How can I help you?" She let out a dramatic sigh, as if the mere confirmation of my ownership had personally offended her. "I live in this neighborhood, and as a member of the HOA board, I have some serious concerns about this establishment." My mind raced. The restaurant wasn't in a residential area. It was on a commercial street, fully permitted, and had been operating smoothly for years. What could she possibly be concerned about? She took a step closer, lowering her voice like she was about to share a national secret. "You're breaking HOA rules by working here. Homeowners are not allowed to operate businesses from their homes." I blinked, caught completely off guard. "I don't run my business from home. This is a separate commercial property." She huffed, waving her hand dismissively. "But you live in the HOA community, don't you?" I hesitated. "Yes, but what does that have to do with my restaurant?" Her eyes narrowed. "It means that as a resident, you are subject to our rules. And those rules clearly state that no business can be operated from home. If you're working here, it means you are violating those terms." A cold wave of disbelief washed over me. Was she serious? I let out a small chuckle, assuming this had to be some kind of misunderstanding. "Karen, this restaurant is not inside my home. It's a legally zoned business. HOA rules don't apply here." She crossed her arms tighter, tilting her chin up as if she had just delivered a winning argument. "The HOA has the right to regulate the businesses our residents are involved in. It's about the community's reputation. We can't have homeowners running around operating businesses that don't align with our values." I felt my fingers clench into a fist, but I forced myself to remain calm. "What exactly about my restaurant doesn't align with the community's values?" She scoffed, rolling her eyes. "It's not about your restaurant specifically. It's the principle. If we allow this, what's next? People opening mechanic shops, dog kennels, or, heaven forbid, tattoo parlors? We have standards to uphold." I could feel the heat rising in my chest. My restaurant was a respectable, well-loved place. Families dined here. Local events were hosted here. This was my passion, my livelihood. And this woman, who had likely never even stepped inside, was acting like I was running some kind of underground fight club. I took a deep breath. "Karen, with all due respect, my business has absolutely nothing to do with the HOA. You have no authority over what I do outside my home. And unless you can point to a legal document that says otherwise, I'm going to continue running my restaurant as I always have." Her eyes flashed with something dark, anger, frustration, maybe even a little desperation. She wasn't used to being told no. "I suggest you rethink your attitude," she said, her voice growing colder. "I have connections on the HOA board. If we decide that your actions are detrimental to the neighborhood, we will take action." I took a step closer, meeting her gaze. "And I suggest you rethink your attitude because you're overstepping your authority. My restaurant isn't going anywhere." Her lips thinned into a tight line, and for a moment, we just stood there, locked in a silent battle of wills. Then, without another word, she spun on her heel and stalked away, her heels clicking angrily against the pavement. I exhaled slowly, my hands still clenched. This wasn't over. I could feel it in my gut. The next morning, I walked into my restaurant, still unsettled from the confrontation with Karen. The conversation kept replaying in my head. Her smug confidence, her absurd argument, the way she acted as if she controlled everything, including my business. I tried to shake it off and focus on work, but the uneasy feeling in my gut refused to leave. I barely made it through prepping for the lunch rush when my phone buzzed with an email notification. I wiped my hands on a towel, picked up my phone, and felt my stomach drop the moment I read the subject line. Urgent, HOA compliance notice. I opened it, my eyes scanning the words quickly. It was a formal warning from the HOA, stating that my involvement in an unauthorized business was in direct violation of community guidelines. The email claimed that my position as a restaurant owner was being reviewed for compliance, and failure to respond within 7 days could result in further action. I let out a sharp laugh, one of disbelief, frustration, maybe even a little amusement at how ridiculous this was. Karen had wasted no time. She had gone straight to the HOA board, twisting the rules to fit her agenda. But this wasn't just an empty threat. The HOA had the power to make my life difficult. They could issue fines, create unnecessary roadblocks, and drag me into a battle I had no interest in fighting. I shoved my phone into my pocket, feeling my patience were thin. If they wanted a response, they were going to get one. By the time I got home that evening, exhaustion weighed heavy on my shoulders, but anger kept me wired. I grabbed my laptop, pulled up the HOA bylaws and started reading. Page after page, clause after clause, I was determined to find the loophole Karen was clinging to. An hour passed. Then two. My eyes burned from staring at the screen, but then I found it. The HOA had clear restrictions about running a business from home. But there was absolutely nothing about a resident owning or working at a business outside of the neighborhood. Karen had no legal ground. She was bluffing. Armed with this information, I fired off a response to the HOA, citing their own rules and demanding an explanation for the warning. I didn't bother being polite. I wasn't about to let them bully me into submission. The next morning, as I pulled into the restaurant parking lot, I spotted something that made my blood boil. Karen. Again. She was standing near the entrance talking to one of my employees, Sarah, one of my best servers. And Sarah didn't look happy. I barely parked before I jumped out of my car and approached them. Karen, I called, forcing my voice to stay even. What exactly are you doing here? Karen turned, a smug expression plastered on her face. Oh, good morning. I was just having a friendly chat with your staff. Sarah shot me a helpless look before stepping away, clearly wanting no part in whatever this was. I crossed my arms. Unless you're here to eat, I suggest you leave. This is private property. Karen tilted her head, feigning innocence. I was just letting your employees know that there could be consequences if this establishment doesn't comply with HOA standards. It's only fair they're aware of what's happening. A sharp burst of anger shot through me. You came to my business to harass my employees about something that has nothing to do with the HOA? That's a new low even for you. She gasped, placing a hand on her chest as if I had just insulted her honor. Harassment? I was simply informing them. And besides, I thought you should know, there's a petition circulating among the board members to formally review your case. I clenched my jaw. Review what, exactly? You and I both know the HOA has no authority over my restaurant. Her lips curled into a smirk. Maybe not. But rules can change. And if enough people in the community believe your business reflects poorly on our neighborhood, we can push for an amendment. Wouldn't that be unfortunate? I stared at her, feeling my pulse hammer in my ears. She was actually trying to rewrite the rules just to get her way. This wasn't about regulations. It wasn't about the community. It was about control. Karen, listen to me very carefully, I said, my voice dangerously calm. You can play whatever power games you want with the HOA. But if you step foot on my property again to intimidate my employees, I will take legal action. Do you understand? She blinked, clearly not expecting me to push back so hard. For a moment, I saw something flicker in her eyes, uncertainty, hesitation. But it was gone in an instant. You'll regret this, she muttered before turning on her heel and walking away. I stood there, fists clenched, watching her leave. This wasn't over. Not even close. The next few days felt like walking on a tightrope. Every time my phone buzzed, I braced myself for another email from the HOA. Every time I saw a new face walk into my restaurant, I wondered if they were sent by Karen to inspect my business. The tension was unbearable. Then the notice arrived. A thick envelope from the HOA was shoved into my mailbox, bold letters across the front reading. Mandatory hearing, homeowner business violation review. I tore it open, my hands shaking with frustration. They had actually done it. They were holding a formal review to discuss my violation, a violation that didn't even exist. The hearing was scheduled for the end of the week at the HOA office. I knew I had to be ready. I wasn't about to let Karen and her little army of busybodies bully me into submission. That evening I reached out to a lawyer. If they wanted to play dirty, I needed to be prepared. After explaining everything to her, she let out a small, knowing laugh. They don't have a case, she said confidently. They're overstepping their authority and they know it. But HOA boards love to use intimidation to get their way. Show up, present the facts, and don't back down. It felt good to hear someone else say it. But knowing the truth and proving it in front of a room full of people who had already made up their minds were two different things. The day of the hearing, I walked into the HOA office, my lawyer by my side, and felt every set of eyes turned toward me. The board members sat at a long table, looking self-important, flipping through papers that I knew were just for show. And there, sitting at the end of the table with a smug expression, was Karen. She had won. At least she thought she had. One of the board members, an older man with graying hair, cleared his throat. We are here today to address the concerns regarding a resident operating a business in violation of our community guidelines. We appreciate everyone's cooperation in resolving this matter civilly. I forced a smile, trying to keep my composure. I'd love to resolve this matter as quickly as possible. But first, I'd like to clarify something. Can anyone here point to the specific rule I've violated? Silence. The board members glanced at one another. Karen shifted in her seat. The man cleared his throat again. Well, as a homeowner, you are expected to comply with regulations that ensure the reputation and integrity of our community. I cut in. That's not what I asked. I want someone to show me the exact rule that says a homeowner can't own or work at a business outside the neighborhood. Karen spoke up, her voice laced with annoyance. It's about setting a precedent. If we allow this, we open the door for all sorts of businesses that could reflect poorly on our residents. My lawyer leaned forward, her tone sharp. My client isn't operating a business out of his home. His restaurant is legally zoned and has no connection to this HOA. This is a private matter that falls outside of your jurisdiction. A woman sitting near the center of the table adjusted her glasses and looked through the documents in front of her. From what I see here, there's no direct violation of any existing rule. Karen's expression darkened. So what? We just let it go? This business is still a reflection of our community, whether we like it or not. I clenched my jaw. Karen, my restaurant employs people. It serves families. It contributes to the economy. The only reason this is an issue is because you decided it should be. She opened her mouth to argue, but before she could speak, another board member, a man I hadn't noticed before, raised his hand. I don't see any legal grounds to pursue this. If there's no rule being broken, then there's nothing for us to enforce. A murmur spread through the room. Karen's face turned red. She wasn't used to losing. The older man cleared his throat for what felt like the 100th time. In that case, we'll conclude this hearing with no further action taken. Karen shot up from her seat. You can't be serious. But it was over. The board members started gathering their things. Some of them avoided looking at Karen altogether. As I walked out of the room, I turned to her, letting a slow smirk creep onto my face. Looks like the HOA doesn't control everything after all, huh? Her glare could have set the room on fire. But for the first time she had nothing to say. The drive back to my restaurant felt surreal. The battle I had been forced into for no reason other than Karen's ego was finally over. Or at least it should have been. But I knew her type. She wasn't the kind of person to accept defeat gracefully. And I was right. The next morning, as I unlocked the doors to my restaurant, I noticed something strange. No customers waiting outside, no usual morning buzz. The parking lot, which was normally filled with early regulars grabbing coffee, was eerily empty. A sinking feeling settled in my stomach as I stepped inside. My staff looked uneasy, whispering among themselves. Sarah, my best server, rushed up to me, phone in hand, her face pale. You need to see this, she said, her voice laced with urgency. She held out her phone, and I saw a neighborhood Facebook group post, one that had already gathered hundreds of comments. At the top of the post, in big, bold letters, was a familiar name, Karen Peterson. My jaw clenched as I read her words. Dear neighbors, I wanted to bring something to your attention. Our HOA recently had to deal with a serious violation involving one of our residents operating a business that does not align with our community's values. While the HOA was unable to take official action, that does not mean we, as a community, have to support it. I encourage everyone to consider where they spend their money. We have a choice in the businesses we support. And some businesses just don't belong. It wasn't just a passive-aggressive complaint. It was a full-on call for a boycott. Karen was rallying the entire neighborhood to turn against me. My hands tightened around the phone. This woman was relentless. When she couldn't use HOA rules to get her way, she resorted to public shaming and manipulation. I took a deep breath, trying to control my anger. How bad is it? I asked. Sarah hesitated. A lot of people are agreeing with her. Some are even saying they won't come back here. But she scrolled down, her face brightening. Not everyone. Some people are calling her out, saying she's being ridiculous. I grabbed my own phone and checked the post myself. Sure enough, the comments were divided. Some people sided with Karen, agreeing that they didn't want a business owner like that in their neighborhood. Others, though, were defending me, pointing out that the restaurant had never caused any issues and that Karen was just on another power trip. Then I saw something that made my heart clench. A comment from one of my regulars, an older man named Mr. Lawson, who had been coming here for years with his wife. "This place has always treated us like family. I don't care what Karen says, I'll be here for dinner." That was all I needed to see. I looked up at my staff, who were watching me closely, waiting for some kind of direction. "We're not backing down," I said firmly. "We keep doing what we do best. We serve great food. We treat our customers with respect. And if Karen wants to play games, we'll let the community decide who they really support." The energy in the room shifted. My employees nodded, their confidence returning. They knew what this place stood for. They weren't about to let one bitter woman tear it down. Still, the damage had been done. Over the next few days, business slowed. Some of the regulars I had seen for years stopped showing up. I recognized a few customers who normally came in but hesitated at the door, unsure if they should enter. Karen's influence had reached them. But something else was happening too. Word of her ridiculous crusade had spread beyond just the HOA members. People from outside the neighborhood started hearing about it. People who didn't take kindly to a rich, entitled woman trying to sabotage a small business. Then one afternoon the tide shifted. A local food blogger, someone with a decent following, walked in, camera in hand. I recognized him immediately. His reviews carried weight in this city. He sat down, ordered a meal, and took his time. Every bite he recorded. Every detail he noted. My staff whispered among themselves, nervous but excited. When he finished, he stood up, smiled at me, and said just one thing. "Karen messed with the wrong restaurant." That night his review went up. And it wasn't just good, it was glowing. He called out Karen's ridiculous behavior, praised the food, the service, the atmosphere. And just like that, the internet did what it did best. People started coming in not just for the food but to support a small business being unfairly targeted. Social media posts flooded in, mocking Karen's attempt to cancel a hardworking business owner. The hashtag Karen Eats Alone started trending locally. And then, the moment that made everything worth it, Karen herself walked in. She looked around, stunned, as the restaurant buzzed with customers, the energy lively and stronger than ever. She had come expecting to see an empty place, proof that she had won. Instead, she saw a thriving business, filled with people who had chosen to stand against her. I met her eyes from across the room and smiled. Not out of pettiness, not out of spite, but because at that moment she knew it too. She had lost.